Evan thought he had finally beaten the banks. He moved his emergency fund into a high-yield savings account paying 4.6%. And for the first time in his life, his money was actually earning something while he slept. He felt smart. He felt ahead. He felt like he had escaped the system. But then he learned something that made him stare at his laptop for almost 10 minutes. His bank was still using his money to earn more than he was getting, and the tool they were using to do it was something Evan could have bought himself. No banker, no fancy account, no middleman quietly taking a cut. And that is when he realized the uncomfortable truth. A high-yield savings account is better than a regular savings account, but better does not always mean best. So before you leave $20,000 sitting in an account just because the headline rate looks good, watch this until the end. Because the difference between where most people park cash and where smart money parks cash can quietly cost you hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars over time. And if you want more videos that expose the hidden math behind everyday financial decisions, hit subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. Now, let's break this down. Because this is not about hating banks. This is about understanding exactly what they do with your money after you deposit it. And once you see it, you will never look at a savings account the same way again. Meet Chloe. Chloe is responsible. She is not reckless with money. She does not blow her paycheck on designer bags, luxury cars, or vacations she cannot afford. She works hard. She saves. She tracks her bills. And after 2 years of discipline, she has built a $20,000 emergency fund. That is a real achievement. Most people never get there. So Chloe feels proud, and she should. But here is where the problem starts. Chloe keeps that $20,000 in a savings account at a large national bank. Not because she compared every option, not because she ran the math, but because that is what she was taught to do. You get paid, you spend less than you earn, you put the rest in savings, and you leave it there for safety. That sounds responsible, but responsibility without information can still make you poorer. Chloe's savings account pays 0.38% APY. That sounds like a number, but numbers only become real when you turn them into dollars. On $20,000, 0.38% gives Chloe about $76 per year. That's about $6.33 per month. After taxes, it's even less. So Chloe spent 2 years building an emergency fund, and her bank rewards her with enough interest to buy one cheap lunch every month. Now here is the part most people never think about. Chloe believes her money is just sitting there. She imagines it resting safely inside the bank. But banks do not make billions of dollars by letting customer deposits sleep. The second Chloe deposits her $20,000, that money becomes part of the bank's machine. The bank can use deposits to make loans, credit cards, auto loans, mortgages, personal loans, business loans. The bank pays Chloe a tiny interest rate, then turns around and lends money at much higher rates. That difference is one of the biggest ways banks make money. If Chloe gets 0.38% and another customer pays 7% on a car loan, 12% on a personal loan, or 21% on a credit card balance, the spread is massive. Chloe is not the customer winning that spread. The bank is. And lending is only one part of the machine. Banks can also buy short-term Treasury bills. That means the bank can take a portion of customer deposits, lend it to the U.S. government through Treasury securities, earn a yield, and pay the customer far less. Think about how strange that is. The bank uses Chloe's money to buy a safe, government-backed asset. Then it keeps most of the yield, and Chloe thanks the bank for giving her $6 a month. That is not because Chloe is stupid. It's because nobody explained the game to her. Now let's meet Evan. Evan is different. Evan watched personal finance videos. He read articles. He knew traditional savings accounts were terrible. So he moved his $20,000 emergency fund into a high-yield savings account paying 4.6%. And compared to Chloe, Evan looks like a genius. Chloe earns about $76 a year. Evan earns about $920 a year. Same $20,000, same basic purpose, completely different outcome. That's why high-yield savings accounts exploded in popularity. They feel like the obvious upgrade, and to be fair, they are an upgrade. If your money is sitting in a regular savings account earning almost nothing, moving to a high-yield savings account can be one of the easiest financial improvements you make. You don't need to pick stocks, you don't need to time the market, you don't need to become an expert. You just move the cash to a better account.
But here is the question Evan never asked. Why is the bank willing to pay me 4.6%? Banks are not charities. They are not paying you a higher rate because they love your emergency fund. They are paying you because they need deposits and they know they can still make money from them. A high-yield savings account does not remove the middleman. It just makes the middleman share a bigger slice. And that is the difference most people miss. Chloe is getting almost nothing. Evan is getting something. But both of them are still letting the bank decide how much of the yield they get to keep. Now, before we go further, let's be clear. This does not mean high-yield savings accounts are bad. They are not. For many people, they're simple, safe, easy, and useful. But the mistake is thinking a high-yield savings account is the final destination for idle cash. It is not. It is a better version of the old system, but it is still the old system. And when you understand what is happening behind the curtain, you realize there are other options. Let's run the numbers. Imagine 3 people each have $20,000 in cash. Same amount, same 12 months, same goal. Keep the money safe, liquid, and productive. Person 1 is Chloe. She keeps the money in a regular savings account, paying 0.38%. Her gross interest is about $76. After taxes, she keeps even less. That is the cost of trusting the default. Person 2 is Evan. He uses a high-yield savings account, paying 4.6%. His gross interest is $920. That's dramatically better. But that interest is generally taxed as ordinary income, federal taxes, potential state taxes, potential local taxes. So if Evan is in a 22% federal bracket and his state takes another 5%, his after-tax interest could drop to around $670. Still good, still much better than Chloe. But now let's look at person 3. Her name is Natalie. Natalie keeps her daily spending money in checking, but she moves her idle cash into short-term Treasury bills through a brokerage ETF or directly through TreasuryDirect. A Treasury bill is basically a short-term loan to the U.S. government. You're not lending your money to a bank and hoping the bank pays you fairly. You're lending closer to the source. That matters. Because Treasury bill interest is subject to federal tax but generally exempt from state and local income taxes. That exemption can be a big deal, especially for people in high-tax states. Natalie might use a Treasury bill ETF like SGOV, which holds ultra-short-term U.S. Treasury bills. It trades like a stock. It pays monthly distributions. Its price usually stays close to $100 because the underlying bills are very short-term. It's designed for liquidity and cash management. Or Natalie might use TreasuryDirect and buy Treasury bills directly from the government. That removes even the ETF expense ratio, but it's less convenient, less smooth, and not as liquid as clicking sell inside a brokerage account. The point is not that every person must use the exact same tool. The point is that Natalie understands something Chloe and Evan did not. Cash does not have to sit inside a bank account to be safe, and sometimes the bank is simply taking something you could access yourself, wrapping it in a familiar account, and paying you whatever it decides is necessary to keep you from asking questions. Now let's pause and answer the first big objection. But my savings account has FDIC insurance. Correct, and that matters. FDIC insurance is real protection. If an FDIC-insured bank fails, eligible deposits are covered up to the legal limit. That's one reason savings accounts feel safe. But Treasury bills are obligations of the U.S. government. The same federal government behind FDIC deposit insurance is also the issuer of Treasury bills. So the comparison is not between safe and dangerous. It's between a deposit protected through a bank structure and a short-term government security held directly or through a fund. Those are different. They have different rules, different liquidity, different tax treatment, different risks. But the idea that a savings account is the only safe place for cash is simply not true. The second objection is liquidity. People say, I need instant access to my emergency fund. Fair, but let's be honest. Most emergencies do not require you to withdraw $20,000 in cash within 60 seconds. A broken water heater, a car repair, a medical bill, a temporary job loss. Most of these situations give you a day or two to move money. That's why some people keep 1 month of expenses in checking, maybe another small amount in a savings account, and place the rest of their emergency fund in a Treasury bill ETF or Treasury money market fund. That way, daily life stays easy. Bills still get paid, debit cards still work, automatic payments still clear. But the larger idle cash balance is not sitting there earning a weak return while the bank quietly benefits. The third objection is simplicity, and this one is real. A high-yield savings account is simple. You open it, you transfer money, you earn interest. That simplicity has value. Not everyone wants to use a brokerage account. Not everyone wants to buy Treasury bills. Not everyone wants to think about tax treatment. And that's fine. But there's a difference between choosing simplicity after understanding your options and choosing simplicity because the bank made sure you never learned the alternatives. That's the real issue. Most people were never taught how cash works. They were taught one sentence: put your money in savings. That sentence is incomplete. It should have been, put your money somewhere safe, liquid, tax-aware, and appropriate for the purpose of that cash. Those are not the same thing. Now let's make this practical. Here's a simple cash system. Not financial advice, just a framework to understand the decision. Bucket 1, daily cash. This is money for rent, groceries, bills, subscriptions, gas, and normal spending. Keep this in checking. Don't overcomplicate it. The purpose of this money is convenience, not maximum yield. Bucket 2, short-term buffer. This is money you might need quickly, maybe 1 month of expenses, maybe 2. This can sit in a high-yield savings account. That's fine. The purpose is quick access, peace of mind, no stress. Bucket 3, idle reserves. This is the cash you want safe, but you don't need every single hour. The rest of your emergency fund, cash for a down payment next year, money waiting for investment, tax money you're saving for later.
This is where Treasury bills, Treasury bill ETFs, or Treasury money market funds become worth understanding, because this is the money that can sit quietly for months. And if it sits quietly, the yield matters. At $20,000, the difference between 0.38% and 3.8% is not a small detail. It is hundreds of dollars. At $50,000, it becomes thousands over time. At $100,000, especially for business owners, freelancers, or people saving for a home, the difference becomes too big to ignore. And remember, this is not about chasing risky returns. We are not talking about putting your emergency fund into meme stocks. We are not talking about crypto. We are not talking about long-term bond funds that can swing when rates move. We are talking about cash management, short-term instruments, liquidity, safety, after-tax yield, the boring stuff. And boring is exactly where a lot of wealth leaks happen, because nobody pays attention to boring money. People obsess over stock picks. They argue about real estate. They debate Bitcoin. They watch videos about becoming rich. Meanwhile, their emergency fund sits in an account earning almost nothing, and the bank uses that same money as part of a profit engine. That is the quiet trap. It does not feel like a mistake. It feels responsible. That's why it works. Chloe is not broke because she bought too many luxury items. She's losing because she stopped learning after the word savings. Evan is not wrong for using a high-yield savings account. He is ahead of Chloe. But Evan made a different mistake. He thought the upgrade was the destination. It wasn't. It was just level 2. And Natalie reached level 3 because she asked a better question. Not which bank pays the highest rate, but what is the bank doing with my money, and can I access that same return more directly? That question changes everything. Because once you ask it, you stop seeing banks as magical places where money is protected and rewarded. You start seeing them as businesses. They need deposits. They compete for deposits. They pay as little as they can get away with, and they earn as much as they can from the difference. Again, that doesn't make banks evil. It makes them banks. But your job is not to protect the bank's margin. Your job is to protect your money. So here's the middle of the video reminder. If this is making you rethink where your emergency fund is sitting, hit the like button so more people can see this, and subscribe, because on this channel, we don't just talk about saving money, we talk about the systems behind money, the part nobody teaches in school. Now let's talk about the biggest mistake people will make after watching this. They will hear, "Do not use high-yield savings accounts," and think the answer is to move every dollar immediately. That's not the point. The point is not to panic. The point is to audit. Open your accounts. Look at your actual APY, not the advertised rate, the actual rate. Some accounts say up to a certain number. That phrase matters. Up to can mean the best rate only applies under certain conditions, maybe only up to a small balance, maybe only if you make debit card transactions, maybe only for a promotional period. So first, check the real rate. Second, check the tax treatment. If you live in a state with no income tax, the state tax exemption on Treasury bills matters less. If you live in California, New York, New Jersey, or another high-tax state, it can matter a lot. Third, check your liquidity needs. Do you truly need all $20,000 instantly, or do you need a smaller amount instantly and the rest within a few business days? Fourth, check your comfort level. If using a brokerage account stresses you out, don't force yourself into something you don't understand. Learn first. Move slowly. Test with a small amount. Watch how distributions work. Watch how settlement works. Understand what you own. That's how smart people make money decisions. They don't just chase yield. They understand the trade-offs. Now, let's compare the options clearly. Traditional savings account. Very simple, very familiar. Usually FDIC insured, but the yield is often terrible. High-yield savings account. Still simple, usually FDIC or NCUA insured depending on the institution. Much better yield, but the rate can change at any time, and interest is generally taxed as ordinary income. Treasury bill ETF. Easy to buy inside a brokerage account, usually very liquid during market hours, pays monthly distributions, can offer state and local tax advantages, but it's not a bank account, it's an ETF. The price can move slightly. You need a brokerage account, and you need to understand settlement. TreasuryDirect. Direct access to Treasury bills, no bank middleman, no ETF fee, but the website is less convenient. The money is tied to maturity dates. It's not ideal for money you might need immediately tomorrow morning. Treasury Money Market Fund. Convenient, often inside a brokerage, designed for cash management, can offer competitive yields. Some funds focus heavily on treasuries, but again, it's a fund, not a bank deposit, and you need to read what it actually holds. This is why the correct answer is not one size fits all. The correct answer is matching the tool to the job. For daily spending, use checking. For immediate emergency cash, high-yield savings may be perfectly fine. For larger idle cash balances, learn treasury options. That's the message. Not banks are always bad. Not high-yield savings accounts are scams, but don't confuse a better bank account with the best cash strategy. Because the financial industry loves when people stop at the first improvement. They want you to feel smart enough to stop asking questions. Chloe stopped at the default. Evan stopped at the headline APY. Natalie kept asking. That's why Natalie wins. And here's the final uncomfortable truth. Your emergency fund is not just money. It's financial defense. It protects you from layoffs, medical bills, car problems, family emergencies, bad decisions made under pressure.
So the first rule is safety. The second rule is access. But once those two rules are handled, the third rule
is efficiency, because money sitting safely should not be lazy by default. It should be doing the best job possible for the role you assigned it. If $20,000 earns $76 in a year, that is not your money working hard. That is your bank working hard with your money. If $20,000 earns hundreds more through a smarter cash structure, that is not gambling. That is simply refusing to let the middleman keep a spread you never agreed to consciously. So here is what to do after this video. Do not close your checking account. Do not drain your emergency fund into something you do not understand. Do not chase the highest number on the internet. Instead, ask 4 questions. What is my actual APY? How is this interest taxed? How fast do I truly need this cash? And is there a safer, more direct way to earn the same yield? Those 4 questions alone put you ahead of most savers. Because most people never get past the first question. They ask, is my money safe? That matters, but it's not enough. You also need to ask, who is profiting from my money while it waits? Because your bank already knows the answer. Now you do too. Chloe did what she was told. Evan did what smart savers do. Natalie did what informed investors do. And the difference was not luck. It was understanding the machine. If this video helped you see cash differently, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. On this channel, we break down the hidden math behind banks, debt, investing, taxes, and everyday money decisions. And before you leave, comment one word below: cash. Because the moment you understand where your cash should sit, you stop letting the bank make the smartest move for you. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not financial advice. Do your own research, understand the risks, and choose the cash strategy that fits your life. But whatever you do, do not leave your money somewhere just because it feels normal. Normal is exactly where the bank makes its money.